So right from the start, there was this really lovely atmosphere, and then they all climbed into their carriages. And you have to think, God, if you're Emmanuel Macron, yes, you're the president of France. Yes, you've been all over the world and done incredible things, but this is a real once-in-a-lifetime, unique, honour to receive. And he just was beaming from ear to ear.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of a Right Royal podcast with me, Andrea.
And me, Emily.
It's been a spectacular week for the royal family with the French state visit at Windsor Castle, showing all the pomp and pageantry you could ever dream of.
Yes, and the cherry on the top was the return of the Princess of Wales to the state banquet, her first since 2023.
We're going to take a deep dive into all the details of that, along with the rest of this week's royal news.
We've had Prince William cheering on the Lionesses in Switzerland, the Royals at Wimbledon, a very special exhibition for the King, and we'll be discussing how the royal family marked the 20th anniversary of the 7/7 London bombings.
We've got quite the episode. Shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Emily, where to start? Now, I know this week is all about the French state visit, and I know you were there, but I think we need to start from the very beginning of the week.
There's been so much happening. And it started on a really sombre note, actually, on Monday. It was the 20th anniversary of the 7/7 London bombings. It's a day I covered as a young journalist and still really affects me to this day. So I found it all really moving. We had Prince William joining the families of victims at a special service which was held in Hyde Park, where there's a permanent memorial to them. And of course, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh attended a service at St Paul's Cathedral. And then the King also gave a message talking about his profound sadness over that incident, but also highlighting the extraordinary courage of the people who came to help on the day. And it's something that I witnessed firsthand. It was a really awful, awful day for the city and for the UK in general. And I think it's so important that the royals are continuing to commemorate it, especially on these big anniversaries. You know, there were some images going around on social media again this week of the then Prince Charles 20 years ago in hospital at the bedside of people who've been seriously injured. And it shows that continuity they have and that ability they have to sort of bring people together in these really challenging moments. So a big start to the week.
Yeah. Well, we also had that letter from the King to the President Trump.
Yeah, the Texas floods, absolutely appalling story. And I think that it's important, again, that the King, as a representative of the UK, is able to send these messages of support. You know, we see it often for natural disasters and, horrendous terror attacks and, these big moments that deeply impact other nations. And I think that, he does that extremely well. Yeah. It's funny because you and I are always thinking, like, when are they going to put this out or when are they going to do that out? And actually, they have the flip side at the palace. They have to be mindful of all of these things going on around the world, and they're in touch with the Foreign Office, and it's knowing which things they should respond to and how. And there's a lot of very delicate diplomacy going on behind the scenes.
I know. Well, our thoughts obviously are with our American listeners. Terrible tragedy. Now, on Tuesday, it was all pomp and pageantry, and you were out from dawn until
beyond dusk.
From dawn till dusk.
It was a long old day.
It was, but it was a good day.
It was spectacular.
It's rare to have a state visit with obviously all that going on, but magnificent weather.
Magnificent weather, and at Windsor for the first time in a long time. And I have to say, I loved it as a setting. And perhaps, us journalists, we really like a bit of novelty. Yeah. We're kind of very used to the setup for the Buckingham Palace hosted state visits. And you have this fantastic parade, horse guards, a procession down the Mall, depending on whether or not you're the president of the US, and security requirements. And then this kind of set piece of activities throughout the day. And this time it looked different. And I think having it in the setting of the castle with 1,000 years of royal history really added, that oomph factor to it, because this is sort of brand Britain at its very best. Yeah. There aren't many people, and there aren't many countries where you have that sort of very, very long continuity of heads of state.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning of the day, because the Prince and Princess of Wales headed to Northolt.
RAF Northolt.
RAF Northolt.
Yes, it's where military planes will come in. And they were there. And this is interesting as well. It really shows their growing role on the world stage. In the last few state visits, we've seen them go to the hotel of the visiting head of state and accompany them to horse guards. This time they were there on the tarmac to welcome President Macron and Madame Macron. And right from the get-go, Kate was there doing her bit for sartorial diplomacy in this fabulous Christian Dior outfit. So the jacket was from the 2024 collection and designed by Maria Grazia Curie, based on a 1947 jacket created by Christian Dior himself. So you had everything there. You had the nod to the host. You had this classic piece of fashion, but also it really called to mind the late Queen. You know, those images of Queen Elizabeth as a young woman, as Princess Elizabeth, in fact, with that nipped-in waist. She looked fabulous.
She looked incredible in photos, and you saw her in real life.
I did, and it was better. Just stunning. It really was beautiful. But also shout out to the Queen, who I thought looked wonderful in that sort of emerald green. It's such a good colour on her.
Really good colour. Of course it's a good colour. You're wearing it today.
But she looked incredible too. And I love to see the thought that goes into all of these things, you know, down to the jewellery and the bags, and we'll get onto the state banquet fashion in just a moment. But it was a really unusual setup, because anyone listening who's been to Windsor, there are 2 train stations there. One of them is Windsor Eton Riverside. It's a standard train station. And when I came out of the station at around 8:30 in the morning, I turned to my left and I saw this dais had been set up. The whole of Windsor was decked out in Union flags and tricolour flags. And there was just this kind of sense of anticipation. Yeah. And I then went inside the castle to wait for one of the later events. But we had the royals gathering. So William and Kate brought the Macrons from the airport to this dais where they were greeted by the King and Queen. And I'm going to call it a love-in, Andrea. I don't know what you thought looking at the videos and the images.
I just thought Macron looked really happy all the time.
He was like the cat that got the cream. He looked so happy. But there's obviously a real genuine friendship there and warmth between the 2 couples. And, you know, the Queen and Mrs. Macron in particular seemed to really share a sense of humour. So right from the start, there was this really lovely atmosphere. And then they all climbed into their carriages. And you have to think, God, if you're Emmanuel Macron, yes, you're the president of France. Yes, you've been all over the world and done incredible things. But this is a real once-in-a-lifetime, unique, honour to receive. And he just was beaming from ear to ear.
Brigitte, at one point, there's some pictures, she was really holding on to that carriage as if it was going too fast. I feared for her at one point, but maybe it was just the bumps on the road.
I think if you're not used to it, and I say this not having travelled, I haven't travelled in a semi-state landau. Just want to make that clear.
Is that not how you came in this morning then?
Well, no, I left it at home. I didn't want to be too showy. Thank you, South West Trains, for the glorious journey in. It was, it's challenging. Yeah. And if you watch these processions, and I know I sent you lots of videos on the day of the horses coming through, and honestly, the people who are managing these are so skilled. It's a lot to be dealing with. They've got all the gear on them. I wish I had better equestrian descriptions for this. But yes, it's rocky, and if you're not used to it,
because we never get that sense from trooping or any other occasion where we see the royals or even the children.
Yeah.
And when I saw those pictures of Brigitte, I was like, what's happening? But actually, maybe if we travelled, it would be exactly the same.
It's such an unusual way of travelling, and to be doing that, knowing as well that the crowds are all watching you and cheering, and this is your big moment. Yeah. The world is watching. So it's quite a lot of pressure, actually.
Oh, so tell us what happened then. Because I know you went to the preview of the state banquet, but,
So the first thing I did at the castle was to watch this procession arrive. Yeah. And inside the castle, there's this magnificent quadrangle. Now, you might remember from the later years of Queen Elizabeth II's life that the last couple of Trooping the Colours she attended in person were held there, and that was sort of over the COVID period. So they're like mini trooping. So that if you have in your mind that image, that's where we were. And we watched this procession sweep in. There were, all the soldiers out on parade, ready for this guard of honour. And then you have the moment where the king and the president go to inspect the troops. And oh my goodness, I've been getting a bit angry this week on social media and on some other news websites, not Hello's, of course, where people have complained about the president breaching protocol. Let's get this clear.
Oh, I haven't even read that. What happened?
There's no breach of protocol. When they are invited to inspect the troops, the tradition is that the visiting head of state walks in front and they're doing the inspecting. So I know this happened a few years ago when President Trump came, and there was, that was perhaps a slightly more awkward sort of configuration. But what happens is the honour's been given to them. So they walk first and they're escorted round by the king. And what we saw, again, was just how well they get on. There's a lot of sort of touching each other on the arm and on the back.
I mean, the kisses.
The kisses, not
the winks.
Not
so much going on.
Not during inspecting the Guard of Honour, but and then just hearing the Marseillaise played really loud in the quad at Windsor, it just honestly was quite goosebumps moment, I would say. Then they all walked off inside for this private lunch in the state dining room. You want to know what happened next?
Yes, I want to know what happened next. A lot happened next. I know there's gifts.
There are gifts. Okay, so the next thing that was seen by the media was this display of items from the royal collection. Now, this happens at every state visit, and you get items that are held in trust for the nation that relate to the visiting country, and they're put out as a mini exhibition for the visitors to enjoy. And it's almost a bit like, look what we've got that you might be interested in. And my goodness, they did not disappoint. So the president and Madame Macron came in with the king and queen, first of all, and they were shown various items, but what really seemed to intrigue them was a second folio of Shakespeare plays, and this dated to 1632, I think. And in the margin, you can see, and I've got to go and see this up close, are notes on each play in the contents page, written by Charles I.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, as a historical document, incredible. Then they saw a travelling library that Napoleon sent to his young son while he was in exile. Obviously, he was Emperor of France. Quite a big deal that we have it in this country and it's not in France. I don't know what the history is behind that. There was also a snuff box made of gold and diamonds that was owned by Marie Antoinette, the last queen of France. Didn't end very well for her, as we all know. And then a bottle of cognac, which had been served to both Queen Elizabeth II in the 60s and to her father in the 30s on state visits to Versailles. And I think the king made a joke that they should perhaps all be having a little drop.
Yes.
Little drop after lunch.
It must be good. Vintage.
And then some. So, I mean, let's just say the atmosphere was fabulous. And then William and Kate followed them in. They were with Rachida Dati, who's the French Minister for Culture. And they seemed to also be having a great, lively conversation with her. I mean,
mine was the hat. I noticed she took the hat off.
Yes, I think that's reasonable.
Comfort.
Over lunch as well.
Course.
Yeah, and they were equally really intrigued. I mean, Kate was looking at the annotations on the Charles I document and going, "Oh my goodness, what beautiful handwriting!" So it's exciting for them too.
She loved the handwriting.
She loved the handwriting. Yeah. Then she very diplomatically turned and said, "Of course, the French have beautiful handwriting too." So really fascinating to see all that up close.
And then we got told that Kate would be present at the state banquet.
Yeah, and they'd held off telling us about this. And I think this is probably in line with how they've been handling all of her events recently, because, obviously she's talked about needing to take things one day at a time. Yeah. We had her pulling out of Ascot not that long ago. I really feel like for a state visit, there's almost a 3-line whip. This is the one big moment where they're really called upon to represent the country and brand Britain. And she delivered. Yeah. And then some.
Yeah, she really delivered. Now let's talk a bit about the state banquet, because you get to go to the preview, and that's kind of where you get a sense of who's invited.
Yes.
You have to go round this. How long is the table?
Oh, I think it's about 50 metres. This one, this particular one,
long table to go round.
It was it was really, really interesting to see because it's a very different setup to what you normally get in Buckingham Palace. It was just this one very long table, and rather than having a horseshoe shape with the key guests and the king and queen right at the top table, they were right in the middle, sat opposite each other, which is quite a different dynamic.
Where does one get a table that long?
I think it's several tables that have been put together. But let me tell you, Andrea, it took a week for them to lay this table.
I know.
It took a week.
To get the candles in the right position up.
To get the 130 odd candles in these amazing silver gilt candelabra, which are brought in from Buckingham Palace. I can't even tell you about the smell of the flowers. It was absolutely heavenly. Everything taken from the gardens at Windsor, the Savile Garden at Windsor. You had roses and stocks and hydrangea and sweet peas and lavender. The whole thing was just magical. And we didn't get to see all the candles lit at the point that where guests sat down. We were watching on a screen just around the corner. But because the table had been so carefully polished, there was this incredible reflections all around. So, and this was in St. George's Hall. And, you know, listeners and viewers might remember that's where...
the big Christmas tree.
Yeah, they have the big Christmas tree. You've been there with me.
I love it.
But Harry and Meghan had their initial drinks reception after their wedding in there. It's a really, really grand space. So again, it's about laying on the red carpet and making the guests feel really, really welcome.
Now, let's talk about the fashion, because
I think we should.
They dropped a bombshell.
They sure did.
Which, you know, the Prince and Princess of Wales, they released a picture, a very rare thing to do before, you know, ahead of a state banquet, where they pose and show off their full outfits. I think it's the first time they've really done it.
It's the first time they've done it to the two of them. So we have seen in the past them with the king and queen ahead of these going in. But what was so special about this was it was just the two of them.
Yeah.
It was outdoors, which is a lovely setting, and it was such a beautiful evening. And then, I mean, let's talk about Kate. She looked absolutely sensational.
She really did.
Floor length, dark red, Givenchy. So, and by Sarah Burton, the creator of her wedding dress. So there was that really personal connection, but also this, again, nod to this massive French fashion house. And she pulled it off big time.
Now, there's a lot of talk as to why she didn't wear white, because Camilla wore white, the Duchess Sophie wore white, Princess Anne, the Duchess of Gloucester, they all wore white. So why did she wear red?
Well, again, it comes down to the diplomacy, and all you had to do was look at that procession as they walked into dinner, and you saw Madame Macron in blue, you saw the Queen in white, and you saw the Princess there in the red. It was the red of the tricolour.
Yeah.
It was
great.
It was perfectly done and incredibly well thought out.
I think it's one of my fave looks at a state banquet for sure. Like the three women nailed it.
Yeah, and let's say
the men look good.
The men look pretty good too. The white tie. They were all as well wearing the Royal Family Order of King Charles III, which is this little miniature. And I mean, we could be here all day talking about the different orders and decorations that were also there, but they really pulled out all the stops for this. And then what about the guest list? What did you make of that?
I thought it was very discreet. It was, you know, there wasn't much on the guests on the night. And even on photos, they weren't, you know, I saw a photo of Elton John and David Furnish the following day that they shared on their socials. I saw that Mika, the singer, went, but I didn't see much. I know that...
Mick Jagger was there.
Yes, with his...
Dame Kristen Scott Thomas.
Yes.
So and they're all people who have connections to France as well. They're not just invited, you know. I mean, maybe I need a big estate in France and I'll get invited.
We were missing that, you know, that David, Victoria Beckham, you know, surprise, I think, because when they went to the last state visit, it was like, woo, you know, that was good.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends
quite
on
discreet.
Horses for courses. I was pretty excited to see Mick Jagger again, although he was at the
previous one in
the
France.
outgoing one into Paris a few years ago, and having covered both of those and been in both rooms, I mean, I would never want to pick a favourite, but it was pretty good. It was pretty good. You know, I mean. The Hall of Mirrors in Versailles, amazing. But, you know, in terms of the history, I think Windsor just nudges it.
I think the whole team here prefers Windsor to Buckingham Palace because the photos were incredible. Everything just looked incredible. So we still have Windsor for a few years, don't we?
We sure do. Well, Buckingham Palace is continuing its resurfacing work. There's still a lot of scaffolding in there. I was in there earlier in the week. And, this has building site vibes.
Yeah. Let's stay at Windsor. Now, one thing that happened during the day, obviously, and we haven't discussed, is Charles's bloodshot eye.
Yes, this was really unfortunate and just really, really bad timing. But, I understand he suffered a burst blood vessel in his right eye, not related to his condition or his treatment. It's just one of those things that happens.
I remember, you messaged us and you told us this, and we saw photos drop, but we couldn't see it because he was looking kind of straight to the camera.
Yeah.
And then when other photos started coming in and he was looking to the left side, then you could really see it.
Yes,
so, at the beginning we were like, oh, you can't even tell. And then it was like, okay, no, you can.
Yeah, it's just bad luck.
Yeah,
I mean, these things happen. It's like when you get a huge pimple the day before your prom or,
That always happens.
Not scarred by that at all.
We kind of can't continue without mentioning that her PA stylist of 15 years, Natasha Archer, is leaving.
I know, and what a way to go out, quite
What a way
frankly.
to go out.
I mean, she's, served up the most incredible looks there for this major, major moment. And Natasha Tash, as she's known to the household, has been, one of their closest confidants over the years since about 2010 when she joined as William and Kate's personal assistant. She's been there at some of the major tours, Bhutan, Canada, Australia.
Carrying those bags out of the plane.
Carrying bags out of the plane, but also for those really private moments, So she was there. She was one of the first people there each time Kate gave birth.
Yeah.
On hand to help her look her best as she left hospital, knowing that, there was a sea of media outside.
Yeah.
And they're going to really miss her, I'm sure.
Yeah. She was photographed at the hospital after her surgery as well.
Yeah, she has been, I think, a really, really key and much loved part of the team. And, we wish her every success in her next venture. She's setting up her own consultancy. I'd say she'd be in quite a lot of demand.
Yes. Now, I have to mention that when it was Royal Ascot, and I believe it was the same day that you attended, there were pictures of her there looking absolutely stunning in a white polka dot dress. Do you, at the time, that kind of grabbed my attention. Do you think that was kind of like a hint that something was coming?
I guess so. I mean, people who work in the royal household are always, by definition, very much generally behind the scenes. So, I think this is going to be really interesting to see what she does next.
Well, we can't wait.
Good luck.
Good luck, yes. And come and style us at the pod. Now, King and Queen, incredibly busy. You would think that the state, visit would have kind of like made them retire for a couple of days. But no, they've just kept on going. As soon as they said bye to the Macrons, they were at another engagement.
Well, the king is like a Duracell bunny, I have to say, at the moment. What you perhaps didn't gather from yesterday's events is that they had the Macrons stay overnight in an apartment at the castle. They then went off and he showed in the garden. Interestingly, this is the East Terrace garden at Windsor Castle, which we found out last week in the Sovereign Grant Report. They've spent £600,000 on redesigning.
Oh, that's why it looks so good.
Well, it looks so good, and it's also justified. There's expense a little bit if this is where you're going to take foreign heads of state to have a tour around. And they actually overran by quite a long way. They were obviously getting on so well that they left the Queen and Madame Macron waiting for about 10 minutes for the next part, for the formal farewell. Yeah. But once that was done, the King and Queen hopped straight to Buckingham Palace for an exhibition which opens today. And anyone going to the palace this summer with a visitor ticket can go and see this. It's quite different to the usual offering. We've had lots of big exhibitions there in the past, and because there is this work going on, it's a little bit more restricted this year. But it's really, really fascinating. It's an exhibition of artists that the King, or the former Prince of Wales, has taken on tours with him over the last 4 decades.
I mean, who even knew?
Well, now I know. I've seen them on tour. But it's something that not many people know. And look, it might strike some people as a bit archaic, perhaps a bit self-indulgent to do this. But actually what it's done is it's really put people on the map, and it's given them a huge boost in their careers. There are artists there who had been struggling in the past. Some are well established, of course, but others who can now say, I joined the King on tour and I've painted his portrait, and that opens doors for them. But what is really lovely about it is that the King just genuinely loves art. And so you have there a piece that was painted by John Ward, the first ever one to join him on tour in 1985 in Italy, painted on the deck of the Royal Yacht Britannia, and then alongside it, Charles's own version of the same scene. So he would sit in the early days of these tours alongside them and paint by their sides. But obviously now, no time for that anymore. But he still really loves this quirk, this particular niche that he's created. And the result is you've got these incredible paintings from all over the world. And he doesn't tell them what to paint. He doesn't say yes, this or not that. There's no restrictions. They can paint whatever they like. And so it means you've got a really interesting variety of things. And it does sort of take me back as well. A lot of the tours, I was thinking, God, I was on that and I remember this. But it's so interesting to see it. We're so used to seeing the photographs.
You're part of history, Emily.
Well,
I love
I'm not that old. But anyway, well worth a visit. And then you also get to see the newly installed coronation portraits of the King and the Queen, which are fabulous in the throne room.
I have to go.
You should go.
Now, you would think, again, that they were tired and Camilla would retire. But then she thought, why don't I head to Wimbledon with my sister?
Why not? Why not? Go meet Novak Djokovic as well. So she looked like she was having a very jolly day with her sister Annabelle Elliott.
Unlike Hugh Grant, who was taking a nap behind her.
I think that was quite a special moment, wasn't it? I think even the BBC picked up on that, didn't they?
It was great. I thought it was great.
I mean, but being a public figure, right? You can't even shut your eyes for 5 minutes, Andrea.
No, you can't even rest them. Now, it wasn't only Camilla, because quite closely next to her was Peter Phillips.
Yes.
And his girlfriend Harriet.
Harriet Spurling. They have been together for quite a while now, haven't they? And they really are leaning into these public appearances together. So they were at Royal Ascot, in the Royal Box at Wimbledon. They look very, very happy.
Very happy.
Very happy. Always lovely to see. And we've also had the Middletons at Wimbledon this week, which has been really great to see.
That was lovely. They seemed very happy to bump into Roger Federer.
Oh,
they are
very
old
good friends. They are old friends.
Well, Kate once admitted that her mum, Carol, had a crush on Roger.
Well, and I think he's taught the future King, Prince George, a few tennis skills as well.
That's lovely.
It'd be nice if he came around and helped my kids too.
Mine too.
If you're listening, Roger.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we expect the Prince and Princess of Wales to make an appearance this weekend, but we know that nothing has been confirmed. But we hope to see them, obviously, because they make a great watch, other than the tennis players, of course.
Yeah.
But William was at the footy. Yes. Which he loves.
Quick dash to Switzerland to watch the Lionesses in action. They beat the Netherlands 4-0. Fairly definitive, I would say. So that was a good result for him to have witnessed. Absolutely. Really exciting. And it means they continue in the competition. Yeah. I think we'd all love to see him back there later in the tournament. Possibly with a few other members of the family.
Fingers crossed. Now, it's quite a sporty week for Prince William, because as this episode is airing, he's off to the polo.
He is off to play. This is a once-in-a-year event for William, who doesn't play polo other than for this event, the Royal Charity Polo Cup each year. And this raises funds for the Royal Foundation charities, the charities that William and Kate personally are involved in and that are supported by their foundation. And so it's great to see. And we've seen Harry as well over the years, obviously playing for Centre Barley. Yeah. This is, it's the sport of kings. It's quite an elite game to be involved in. But it's just another way of showing how the royals are able to convene people. They know that if they say Prince William is playing in this event, people will stump up and they will turn up. They'll want to play. They'll want to take part. And it generates huge amounts of money for good causes.
And he's still going. How old was King Charles when he retired from polo?
You put me on the spot here. Yes, he had a back injury.
Yeah.
And I think it is challenging to keep playing.
I mean, William looks fit enough to keep going for many years.
I'm just going to let that hang, Andrea.
Right. They are wrapping up, though, I have to say.
Yes.
The summer is kind of, it's been a very busy week, but...
Summer holidays around the corner.
Yeah.
For me.
And for me.
Yeah, for you first.
Yeah.
Not jealous.
And they're taking a break. As we know, August is always time away, except for Anne, who seems to just keep going and going and going.
She likes to go and visit a few lighthouses around this time of year, doesn't she? Yeah. Well, she also is going to be celebrating her 75th birthday in August.
Oh, so it's a big one.
It is a big one. It's one we will be covering as well at length in the magazine and online.
Oh, we hope to get a photo from her. I know she doesn't love that much, but she doesn't
like to have any fuss made about her.
She hates attention,
She doesn't, but you know what? Speaking to the people she works with, she is so admired, almost revered, I would say. Yeah. You know, they cannot speak highly enough of her, and I just think that's so great to hear. And someone who doesn't seek the limelight in any way and doesn't want the press coverage and doesn't want, you know, the herograms, she does really make a big impact on her charities.
I have to say, going back to the state banquet, she looked incredible.
Has anyone worked out what vintage her dress was?
I know, it's probably like 50 years old.
I know.
But she looked incredible.
She really does.
Her hair looked amazing as well. A little change from her usual. We love Princess Anne, you can tell.
We sure do. Happy birthday, ma'am.
Let's wrap it up.
Yes, let's do that. I have to go and write my newsletter now for Hello's Royal Club. I'm going to be writing all about the things you may have missed from this week's state visit. So do sign up and have a read.
I will. Well, I'm already signed up and I will have a read. Too. Emily, I think it's time to wrap up, but I thought, and inspired by your cocktail mention, we'd wrap it up with a very nice cocktail.
I love this. For anyone who is listening and not watching on YouTube, you are missing. Andrea has just handed me a glass of something cold and sparkling with some lemon in.
It's a non-alcoholic G&T.
Okay, now I'm disappointed. But listen, this is perfect. I mean, the only thing that's missing, I think, is the dried flowers that they used at the Windsor Castle.
Well, funny you should say that, because
she is literally giving me her drink to hold. What's going on?
I have the as ever flower sprinkles.
Oh my word!
I think we should elevate this drink a bit. Let's do this.
Oh, how pretty!
I have to say that actually looks. Look at that! Look at that! That actually looks better. Let's give that a try. And a chin chin.
Cheers! Happy holidays!
And to all our readers and listeners.
Vive la France!
Well, that's everything from us today. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back for one last special episode before the summer break.
But fear not, we'll be back in September just like the Royals. And as always, in the meantime, get more from our entertainment podcast, The Daily Lowdown, which is available on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Bye!
Bye!
Cheers!